How's your week been? Alan? I feel like I haven't talked to you in a month. How have you been, sir?
I'm great.
Okay,
Doing
good.
good. No, I'm good. I've been thinking about going deer hunting, and I was talking to a buddy of mine last night, and he told me to buy loud ammunition, and I was like, I don't understand why you would do that. He said, "Oh, you get more bang for your buck."
It's good. I like that.
Yeah.
It's good. And it's that time of year, right? Everybody, all the guys and gals that are
Hunt
outdoorsmen
season.
looking forward to turkey and venison next week, I
Yep.
suppose. Pennsylvania, Ken, where you're based out of, is getting ready to give the kids the week off for Thanksgiving or for deer season. We don't know.
Yes. I know when I was in school, Monday was a required day, and the school was always half empty, and the schools finally just gave up and said, okay, you get Monday off as well. But based on driving around here, I'm not sure if there's going to be any deer left for the hunters. The amount of roadkill in the last two
Oh, really?
weeks is tremendous.
Oh,
So,
no.
yeah.
Oh. The nicest. So I grew up in a family of hunters, and when I was in middle school, the nicest buck gotten that year was by my grandmother with a with a '91 Subaru as her weapon of choice. Hey, to our audience, as you're coming in, I could use your help if you don't mind. And that's a reminder to me that I probably have to turn on permission for chat for the audience. So hold on to that question. I have to remember how to do that. Panelists can chat, and attendees can chat with everyone. All right. We've noticed in the last 24 hours, at least in Alan and I's home environment, that navigating to integrate-live.com has stopped working. Will someone or all of you please try to go to integrate-live.com? Message us through the chat if you're seeing that showing up as a dead page, please. That is problematic if that's what you're seeing, and I'm going to have a fun afternoon of troubleshooting.
I thought you're just trying to increase your page counts,
Yeah, that's exactly right. We're gonna break 100.
That's a pretty good scheme. Yeah.
We're
Yeah,
gonna break.
everyone's like, yeah, it's working great.
Yeah.
I'm like, could you do it one more time?
From a different
Sammy,
browser, different
yeah.
computer. Yeah.
Sammy, thank you for being the first in the chat. But we're going to talk about contextualization today. And Sammy, I need some contextualization. Is yes a good thing, or is yes a Jeff, it's broken thing?
Yeah. Yes, he was going to go to the page.
Cannot get it. Thank you, Dave. I'm guessing my mom's in the audience. She tends to hit all of these. If mom's on there, I'll show you how to navigate to a web page over Thanksgiving. Please don't try. Okay, you're all ready to do this? Let's do some introductions. Alan, we're joined by everybody's favorite Canary business solutionist, Ken Wyatt. Ken, how are you?
Hey,
Doing
Ken,
pretty
is there
well.
more than one of you? Does somebody else have that title?
I wish.
Oh, then you're absolutely my favorite.
Oh, that's great. You're my favorite Alan Ray too. So
For the audience, you don't realize this, but Alan and Ken have a very long-standing love-hate relationship that has been focused mainly around
I
ping
want to
pong.
be clear.
there is no
I
hate
love
involved.
him. He hates me. I don't know why.
Oh, I think it's the other way around. It all stems from jealousy around ping pong results, I'm pretty sure. So
Yes. Yes.
We have Graham Welton, who does not play ping pong. Graham's with Flow Software. Graham is one of the co-founders at Flow. Graham, thanks for being on here.
Cool. Thanks for having me, Jeff. Looking forward to a good conversation. Hopefully, a demo that actually works. My wife has recently flown back to South Africa, and I don't know why, but I was thinking about it. Who built the plane that couldn't fly?
I don't know. Who?
The Wrong brothers.
Speaking of flying, it has four wheels and flies? A garbage truck.
I was going to say my son's work truck. Yeah.
I'm just amazed that Graham Welton broke out a dad joke unprepared.
Impressed.
I've been practicing for weeks, Jeff.
Okay, that was good. Well, the delivery was solid. And
how many times did your wife have to fly to South Africa until you got that right?
Only twice.
And from Phoenix Contact, we've got Jake Custon. Jake is the senior solutions engineer focuses on IoT stuff, and therefore is the guy today who's going to walk us through PLCNext, the information gateway, and things MQTT. Jake has been under the weather. He is coming out of what most everybody, it seems like, across the US at this point have been feeling the last 2 weeks. So Jake, thanks for persevering. Thanks for being here. Audience, today I'm going to make no guarantees to you. We've not really done a dry run on this. We are going to do our absolute best to wow you, but you're going to see a real deal integration project here. And I'm expecting some sharp bits and some pain points along the way, but we've got 83 minutes to figure it out as we go. So sit back, enjoy. Please use the question and answer feature inside of Zoom to ask us questions on the fly. We're happy to take them when appropriate. If not, we'll hold them for the end. And even if we push over, I promise we'll address all questions that get asked. It appears you have to have a beard to participate, or at least a stylish mustachio. Jake's got that nice Van Dyke mustache that I cannot grow. Hey, here's what we're starting off with today. Let's talk about what you're going to see. So we've got a couple of different parts of an architecture that we're gonna walk through today. We're gonna imagine we have our factory floor. The PLC screen share is coming through, okay, guys? You're seeing?
Yep.
We're gonna imagine we have a factory floor environment, and we've got PLCNext out on the floor. We're gonna simulate tanks today. So the PLCNext has a Linux environment. That Linux environment has allowed Graham to install Flow in a Docker on the PLCNext. That means that Graham is going to show us essentially a dispersed environment of Flow. We're not going to get into the execution of calculations on the PLCNext. It's just one of those things that Flow is going to be able to do natively because the Docker is there. Docker image of it's there, allowing us to do it. But Jake's going to show us publishing data off the PLCNext up to an MQTT broker. I'm using a Hive free instance for this. And then Ken is going to historize that data. We're going to spin up 9 simulated PLCNext as well and backfill history so that we have history to work with. Ken's going to show us the data gen tool that Canary offers free that lets you do that. It's a really nice tool to have for your own dev and testing environments. Ken's going to build an asset model. He's going to abstract the namespace he's inherited from the broker. He's going to build an asset model. He's going to build asset-based calculations. Graham's going to pull all of that information from Canary, improve upon it. We're looking at even doing a projection. So we're looking at taking some base data, historic data, and projecting where we're going to be in the future. And then all of this information is going to get written back. So Graham's going to write information back to Canary. And then both Canary and Flow have the capability to also publish data on change back to the broker. And we're going to talk about the next step then of what that's going to look like with some cool future releases that Jake's been working on. All of that's going to happen. We're going to integrate it all live in front of you. And with that, we better get started. Jake, you want to kick us off and show us the environment that you're working in?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Right, let me share my screen here. Let's see, share the entire screen. Do you guys see my screen yet?
Not yet.
Share screen. Okay. There we go. I think it's working now.
We got you.
Great. Okay. So what I'm going to talk about today is a product called the Edge Gateway, which is a software application that you install on one of our products. For example, the 2152 controllers or our EPC product. This can be virtualized as well. So if this product is installed, which can be found on our App Store, normally when you navigate to a PLC, PLCNext PLC, you'll get this kind of familiar screen. For now, after our application is installed, you just type Edge there, and should load. Once you're into the application, there's you'll be greeted with the dashboard, and from here you can add different things like our drivers, metrics. We can tap into the if there's a PLCNext program running on the PLC, for example, if this is installed on a PLC, we could access tags from the PLC application and bring them into this app. Yeah, and so what I want to demonstrate today is specifically is our spark plug connectivity, and we've tried to make it as easy as possible to get a connection into a existing server. So as you see here, to add a driver, you just come down to the driver section, hit this plus button, and spark plug. And then you'd be greeted with the screen here, this pop-up box in which you type in your credentials. Now, if you were to click submit here, this would automatically connect to our test server. And if you had the URL for that, which is pxiot.cloud, you could then, for free, just test this driver connection with a tag on that particular server. But in our particular case today, we're going to be putting in the credentials for our test server here, and we're going to make a connection. Paste those threads from over here. Okay, submit. Use that, and now we're connected. So once we're connected, then it'll create a page for that particular driver. So then we can click on that there to come into the driver, and then if we wanted to add data, well, here's start over there. So on the screen here, you'll have some information about the status of the connection. So if there was an error, it would pop up here. This thing would turn red, for example. Over to the left here is some log information about the driver. So if there's any kind of problems, or if you just want to see some statuses, for example, packet output, you could see that there. So then I'm just going to create some tags here. Here, just going to grab some random. So there's some. These are just some tags from the system. So we have some datas, some active datas going in. I'll grab. I think I have an AI on there that I could move around. So when you're on the screen here and you're going to add in a tag, you're just going to give it a name. You're going to select the data source. So this picker here can select data from anything in the system. So any kind of drivers that are on the system, so the Axio lines, the Axio bus, so that's like our inputs, outputs. Any other drivers that we have added in right now, I am connected to my this Azure driver. So if there was other kind of things in there, I could select them from there and send them up.
On the can you go back to that real quick?
Sure. This.
Yeah. So yep, you go to data. Is it data? No, there you go. So logic.
Yeah. Okay.
My question was on the logic. So if I'm looking at a PLC program that's written, the tags that would be created in that PLC program, would that be in logic or would that be in the actual?
So that would be you'd have to enable your PLCNext API driver, which is a separate driver. I could show you where that's at then, and then anything in your PLC program that is tagged as an HMI tag should then show up inside of this gateway under the PLCNext API system. So like right here, I see Axio line, there'll be a PLCNext API folder that's here.
I'm not asking you to do it, but just talk through real quick. Once I enable that API and it becomes available, do I have to do anything on the tag itself to say, hey, I want this to be public, readable, writable? Like where does that get handled?
So that would be, so then those are just local to the system here then, and then what you're exposing is anything that you're adding into your like drivers here.
Got
So
it.
like
Yep.
Spark
So
driver.
there you're gonna write. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
No problem. In that little logic section that you saw, that is for, so if you're on the dashboard and you come over here to metrics, you can take any kind of data that's in the system and you can start creating like, we have a full expression system that you can use on the tags that are coming in so that you can manipulate that data if you
So
need
would the metrics window here be for analytics, just like dashboard of health of the PLC?
Could be like you could add that to there if you wanted to. Like you could add whatever you wanted to this metrics dashboard. That's just yeah, that's for you to so like if you came in here and just it's the same picker, so you could select anything in the system to use anywhere else in the system, basically. So
Yes. You want to go to Sparkplug B and pull your
sure.
Yeah, you could get your let's see.
Yeah, I didn't create anything yet because we've been all over the place. But yeah, if I created metrics in here, they'd show up here. But yeah,
great.
I don't know if you. Yeah, you could just select the tag there. Oops, my bad. I clicked off of that and it closed the window. Say if we had a tag in there, we'd be able to select. Well, let's just do that. So let's go back to where we were before. So let's go back to dashboard, Sparkplug. So let's go in here and create a metric, and then we can mess around with some of this other stuff. That'll make more sense. Okay, start level. I'm just going to select a system tag that's flopping all over the place. Make it real. By default, there is some stuff in here. So your deadbands enable, which enables this system here. And the reason I have that implemented like this is because this debounce time is pretty much, if you have a tag like an analog input that's flopping all over the place, it's not going to send up. It'll send up after it changes and after this amount of time has expired. Just so you're not getting bombarded with analog updates you don't need, for example. Anyways, so there you go. It's creating a level value. Tags here.
Yep.
Value. System. So all the reels, which is different update times. Oh, so our time is expired from the login. So if you log in quick. So then that last one, I'll grab a. So this one, we'll say this is well, we'll name it pH, but we'll select a analog input. So on my Axio, I have a Smart Elements rack, and on that rack, I have these 4 modules. And on one of these inputs, I have a yeah. So if I turn this little knob here, we should see. Yeah, there you go. Value. Move around. So I'll select that value. So that's how you select an analog input. And make sure you call it a reel. Deadband enabled. Give it a debounce time of something even lower. That.
And I just saw that come through on my side, Jake.
Great.
10.4, 10.5.
Yeah, sounds like
65, that's a high pH.
Yeah, you might not enjoy the value you're getting, but yeah. So anyways, so then to just step back here to the other system a little quick, then you can just take values here and scale them or whatever you want to do with them. So let's take something from Sparkplug, right? We created. Oops, over there now. So here's our pH value, and It's pH max. We're going to scale it, and then we're going to multiply it by.
Cool.
So then, so that's where like, so we could do a calculation on something, for example. Yeah, this is where we do that. Now we could take ultra pH and we can, if we wanted to now, we can go back into Sparkplug.
I'm going to ask that you don't publish that though to the.
Oh, okay. Well, we could. So then we go in here.
Our UNS would be destroyed.
Yeah, under logic, then now where there wasn't anything before, now we have ultra pH, and that's our calculated pH, and we could just keep on doing this forever. So everything in the system is taggable, and anything could be used to
Cool. Thank you.
anything else. So yeah, that's all I have for my presentation.
Yeah, sure. Well, we'll complete the narrative at the end, Jake. We'll come back and we'll talk to you about what you're working on now and what's.
Yeah, sure. Excellent.
So
cool.
Jake, what you've shown was current release, or is that a beta product that you're?
Okay, so right now we are calling this Sparkplug beta because we're in the middle of certifying. So there's a certification process that you go through. So we don't want to officially say we're released until we're officially certified, of course.
Yeah. So Graham and Ken are from that process, I believe.
Yeah. So we're getting there. We're almost there.
Awesome. For those in the audience that aren't familiar with what we're referencing on that, so part of the Sparkplug working group goal is to have a TCK that any vendor can test themselves against their application or their hardware against to ensure that they are compatible with the spec. And so you can go to the Eclipse Sparkplug working group. It's on GitHub, and you can download that TCK, and you can actually take your solution through that, post the results, and then become a validated solution that gets your hardware or software published on the Sparkplug website as a result of that. Okay, so Jake, you've got that under wraps. Ken, let's shift over to you. Graham, we'll come back and have you walk through how just the idea of putting like flow components on the edge. But let's go ahead and just transition, Ken, if you're ready, and let's walk through, on the Canary side.
Sure.
Give us a little history on MQTT, if you would, and the product, how the product's evolved with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've adopted MQTT. Wow, it's been 4 years ago already. Thanks to Mr. Alan Ray, the work we were doing with his previous life, and they pushed us or requested us to develop our collector at that time, and so that's how we got into the Sparkplug world. We currently sit on both committees. We're all in on it. We believe in it. We love the flexibility, the dynamic nature of it, and we are huge proponents of it. And so we do whatever we can to encourage others for adoption and ease of use.
Yeah, and some of the systems when it comes to maybe tag size that you've been able to do because of Sparkplug from a volume and a faster.
What's they're at now, Ken? Do you know?
Somewhere around 2.1, close to 2.2, I think, is what they're approaching. So they're the largest MQTT deployment that I'm aware of. Running our collector on roughly somewhere around 100 different gateways or servers, I believe. So it's quite a distributed system, all coming back to centralized historians then.
And for the record, you were speaking of millions, right? 2.2.
Yeah. Sorry.
I want to say that once we turned on, it seemed like it was 14 million, but it's been tuned down. But the interesting thing about it was, and this is just give a little history here on my experience with specifically MQTT and Canary, but we had a prior historian, and then we had a team of really 6 people that ran that, some full-time employees and some contractors. And it was a challenge. The maintenance was a challenge. And every month we did patch night, and it'd take us
It wasn't easy as pie.
No, it wasn't.
Shame.
So anyway, my point is that we had to make a change because of the effort and the cost and different things. But when we got our architecture actually stood up and we distributed, decoupled everything and really distributed it across our gateways, I mean, that team is down to one full-time employee and one contractor and managing the same, I mean, even more tags, I think, than we had before. So it's a testament to MQTT and the robustness and the state you get, the understanding of what the actual, and then, I was using Canary on another project that I'm a part of, and the ease of being able to stand up another site, those tags get published. The regex is already the rule set's done. That site comes up immediately into Canary. I don't have to go do anything. I just literally just publish the sites, rule sets set correctly, everything comes in. It's magic.
Magic when you have your tags normalized. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Takes some hocus pocus otherwise. So
yeah.
Well, Ken, walk us, if you would. I think we've seen the MQTT collector before, but if you want to just, for the audience that's fresh or new, if you want to just give a quick overview, and then to the audience as you're getting ready on that, Ken, as I mentioned, we're going to have to simulate data. Jake just started publishing. He published 1 or 2 tags. We're going to simulate 10 devices, and we're going to have weeks of data through that simulation. Otherwise, Jake would have had to start this 3 weeks ago, had 10 PLCNext in his home lab, and that's just not feasible for the demo. So I just want to call that out. You're going to see us simulate data for this because we need to do analytics, right? All right, Ken.
Sure. Yeah. And back to the tag count that Alan had asked for, the 2.1 million, 2.2 million. That's what they're choosing to historize. The broker probably is exposing, roughly all 14 million. They are selectively choosing which tags to historize into Canary. Not all of them have historical value. And so that's why, the broker's handling much more than that. We're logging maybe 20% of the tags, if that. So, but in any case, what I have up on my screen here is our Canary administrator, where majority of our system can be, administered and configured. So we do have our MQTT collector here running locally on this server. If I were to go into this, I can see I do actually have a couple sessions already configured. And if I wanted to look at what configuration looks like, I drop down here to my configuration tab. And here's actually the one that if we were going to be logging real time off of the Integrate Live broker that was stood up, just as Jake provided the address and credentials, we would establish the same connection through the URL, through the port, our credentials. We of course want to log over a secure connection using TLS, using certificate. And then once we have the connection to the server established, then we would come into our subscription, which is where we could specify which topics we were interested in. In this case, out of the box, we're interested in everything. If we wanted to be a little more selective, we could add in some branching to the topic here to only cherry pick certain nodes or certain topics that are exposed through the broker. We have options to automatically log all tags, which is what I just kind of spoke to. We have customers that certainly take that, everything in the broker, let's go ahead and historize it. We do have the ability to not do that, in which case all the tags would fall down into another kind of view of the information. And within this view, if I was connected to my broker, I could see the tags and I could selectively choose or not choose to log and historize those tags in Canary. So pretty basic setup, pretty quick to get up and going. Our installer, we actually install or have an option for you to install a local mosquito. So if you wanted to try out and demo MQTT pretty quickly without worrying about another vendor or where am I going to get a broker and stand that up, we actually bundle it in our installer just as a kind of quick start guide to MQTT. So
that's super helpful. One of the things that I I use Canary. So obviously, I've still got my Canary memory working. I use Canary a lot on my in my workbench to test. Am I getting something at the broker? You know, I'm always turning history on. I'm always publishing back up in order to use it as a test environment. That filter feature is huge because I can subscribe, I can wildcard to everything, I can subscribe to a device or a node, but I don't have to take everything on it, right? I can choose with that filter. And if I'm not mistaken, I can use regex on that filter as well
Yeah.
to rule
Yeah.
match.
Yep.
Very nice feature. Also might just mention, Ken, I didn't hear you say, so you support as the tag history provider, right? So you can essentially trigger if the broker and the client are compatible, if Canary loses connection to the broker, that will a primary host ID will essentially tell the client to buffer data locally so that you don't.
That is true. Yeah, it basically creates a durable stream, and so yeah, that's certainly quite important in certain instances where we are the primary keeper of the data.
Right. Cool. Hey, can you walk us through the data generation tool that you're going to use today? This is one of those things that I think most people that use Canary don't realize they can add this as part of the installer.
Yeah, so absolutely. I already got it kind of up here with a config file loaded, but just like a lot of other vendors, they have some sort of simulation tool, and so we have the same thing just to be able to generate some data if you don't have connectivity or aren't permitted to connect to your actual production resources. You can fire this thing up. It sits alongside your executables down in program files. But if I choose a tag here, so you can kind of see some various options. This looks pretty similar to maybe some of the options that you see inside your OPC server as far as log rate, cycle rate, things like that. Basically direct it to a historian. We do have a couple targets, so we not only can we write this directly to our historian through our store and forward, but we can output this as MQTT. We can target a broker, direct simulated data to a broker, whether that be SparkPlug-B or we support a JSON output as well. So you choose your target. In this case, we're going to log locally to the historian that we're on, give me a data set. Obviously, we got some tag names involved here. And then we have all kind of patterns to build somewhat, maybe hopefully realistic data where our pH isn't, in the 60s or 70s, but or the ultra pH. But no, we do have some kind of parameters in here to help you bound your values to maybe try to simulate some real life processes, so that as you're doing this or you're pitching solutions to either your bosses or to a client, that you can have something that looks at least halfway reasonable and realistic. So,
not just a sine wave. And
that when I started at Canary, I think we had 4 patterns, and that was it. We had the triangle, the sine, a flat line. I don't even know what they were. They were horrible. So we added some spice to our life, and you actually get some decent options here. So
let's highlight too that they're the same, but one's going up, one's going down. The accumulate and the deaccumulate, right? So
yeah,
super helpful because you're telling it the cycle, right? Like, take it for 5 days, and you're telling it the start point and the end point,
yep.
but it is randomly moving towards that goal or down towards that goal. So you get a nice randomization, but you still control the totalizer, or the detotalizer, I guess would be the
subtractor. I don't know. Yeah.
There you go. All right, cool. You want to backfill that for I don't know, a couple
Yeah.
weeks?
No, it's super fast. So I was thinking, hey, let's really, if we're doing analytics, we need, a fair amount of data here. So I've already pre-set up my data sets on the historian. That's one thing that we didn't do here live. So I'll go over here just real quick, show you, I kind of have some data sets already staged, ready to go, that we know are going to be accepting some data. If I come back over to my range, let's go all the way back to September 1st. I say, okay. I can see this thing's already churning away. I can see I'm directing this to my Acme Sim data set, and it's pumping quite a few values in here. And so we'll fill from September 1st up to current, and then it'll kind of go into live mode, and we'll see the updates per second kind of settle down.
And there's utilities where you could run this as a service for the audience, just so you know. So you could set this up to always be running in your background. And that publishing to MQTT is really, really nice for this.
Yeah,
exactly.
All right. Okay, so now that we got some data coming into the system, I guess the next step would be we've got to build an asset model around that then. So, so let me jump over to what we call our views service. So our views is where we can add our contextualization layer. Now in this case, since we're coming through, simulating coming through MQTT, typically our tag paths are pretty good, and there's not a lot of tag transformations that are going to need to occur. Obviously, we work with a lot of older SCADA systems where it's a flat model. Maybe you're limited on tag length, and so it's really hard to describe a tag in a SCADA name. In that case, we allow tag properties to be attached to our tags. Those properties could be used as part of the contextualization to build out custom browse trees. So I'm not going to go into a lot of details around properties and what's possible. But in this case, by default, we have just our local historian. If I go
we'll say one thing real quick, Ken, about the properties. Sure. One of the things that we were able to take advantage of at Era was simply the fact that, hey, we had ignition, so we were able to, on a regular basis, just keep all of our tags going to a database. Well, then from that database, we could quickly go in there and add a property to select whatever tags we wanted and add that property, and then all those tags get automatically connected to that view. And it was very effective. Not having good tag names, but having the ability to get your tag names into a database quickly, add a simple property column, and then pick the tags you want, add the property, and then just go about your business.
Yeah. So to clarify, Alan, I think what I heard you say is you're abstracting your existing SCADA naming structure by associating that structure with properties from another database. Canary's reading that database, picking up the match, and then putting that SCADA tag.
So you're 100% accurate. We did, because we had another system that had we had a data warehouse that had properties and IDs, and so we were able to extract those IDs. And because we had the IDs and the IDs were tied to the ignition tag name, we were quickly able to associate a property based off of the two systems together, and that dynamically made a ton of properties and connected all our stuff together. Then the next step was, hey, we don't have any connection between these tags, and we want to make a connection. Then you could go in manually and just add the property, pick the tags you want, add the property, and then all those tags get associated with that property. But yeah, the work that Scott Rush did on working on our data from one system and then tying it to our tag name, because we had that link, that was very effective for us too.
Yeah, and that's not an uncommon story. We have many customers where we almost completely disregard the SCADA name. There's not enough information there, and we drive all the models that we build off of properties. And a historian tag can exist in multiple properties. So you have different departments, you have different consumers of your data. If they think about the process differently, or they need to see it based on some accounting term, then we build models to satisfy the needs of whoever your consumers of the data are. And so I have customers that are running with 40, 50 models. I would say Air is probably in that category with somewhere around that many different views of the data. And sometimes it's subsets of views. You're doing some contract work with an outside vendor, and you want to give them access to just a certain piece of your process or certain types of equipment. They want to monitor your compressors. We can abstract away just those compressors that are part of the contract for them, and expose just that data to them, and that's all driven off of properties and the engine that can iterate over the millions of tags.
Cool. Well, let's build one. Ken, show us how you're going to build a view that's going to include anything with Acme in it, if you would.
All right. So we'll go up here to create new view. And so here's where just like Jake, we're going to do some things live here and hope it all falls into place. So we're just going to call this thing Acme. By default, I only have one view to choose from, but underneath that, we understand that we're going to have multiple data sets. For now, I know I have some information coming into my Acme sim. Here's if we were going to use any tag properties to drive this model, we would list those out here. In this case, the structure coming through our simulated MQTT is going to be good enough. So I'm just going to go ahead and say OK. And if I expand down here, I can see my tags that came in. We love Jake and his naming conventions, but we don't really want this to be PLCNext in the middle. We know these are actually tanks. So we're going to just do a minimal amount of transformation here. As Jeff said, right now I'm only pulling in my Acme sim. We know, as we start producing some calculations, as Flow is going to write back to Canary, we actually want to wildcard this, and we want to bring in any of our data sets that start with the word Acme. So at this point, that doesn't change my tag count, but later as we work through the different steps here, we'll see more tags start coming into this model now based on the data sets that we're monitoring.
And that's important if I have a large system specifically too, and I'm using MQTT, right? With that MQTT collector, one of the properties is, hey, only put 20,000 or 25,000 tags in a data set. So you might have a number of data sets that's growing. And that little feature right there allows you to create this view and not have to worry about monitoring what data sets are now there and having to bring them in. You're creating an auto discoverable model, essentially, I guess, is what that
exactly
gives you.
Yeah. Ideally, our goal is once you have configured the historian, you've configured your collectors, and you build your models, that it's almost hands-off maintenance at that point. Hopefully you're using a collector that has auto discovery, new assets come on, MQTT pushes those through, historian just keeps creating new data sets as your tag count is scaling, and views recognizes the new data sets and the new tags, and the models auto rebuild, auto ingest those tags, and they're available for your users in displays or through API or whatever tools you're utilizing.
Yep. And then for a 2024 roadmap of some type of a Kubernetes hyperscaler environment, and your historian resources scale as they need to, right?
Someday, yeah. Did you say 2124 or was that 2024?
You guys will release it next year, I'm confident. All right. I'm sorry.
All right. So I'm going to write just a couple roles here. Like I said, just minimal transformations here. Since we're dealing with multiple data sets, we don't want the data set name as part of our output tag path. We want to, kind of lop that off. So real quickly here, I'm just going to fly through a couple roles. I can see that we're transforming Acme Sim, and we're simply removing the data set name. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And as I said, we like PLCNext. But in this case, those are tanks in our world and what we're building out here today. So just a real quick transformation here. And that's all I'm doing. And so now I need to describe the different layers of my structure that we have coming in. And so I'm going to, instead of doing a model role, I'm going to switch over to an asset role. This isn't meant to be a regex primer. If we want to do an integrate live on regex, why, that would be a really not exciting task. So, so I'm going to go ahead and start applying modeling roles now to our different layers of the hierarchy. And so I know layer 1 is what we're going to call a plant. And so I can see it matched on all 40 of my tags, created a single instance, and now my display at the bottom is starting to change a little bit. So I can see Acme Fruit has now been typed as a plant. I'm going to continue on with this. And we're going to do branch number 2. And to us, branch number 2 is considered a line, and this is an asset role. Sorry about that. I should not have that there. And so now I can see under my one plant, We have the 10 simulated lines coming in through our data gen. Again, if I expand this, now I can see even in here, I can start to observe some structure that's coming in. And real quickly, I'm gonna copy this roll and do an edit. And so my third branch is now considered a tank. And there we go. So we must have a tank under each line. And within a tank, I can see that I have 4 tags here, at least on that one. I could actually look at something that we call asset definition. I can choose my tank up here, and I can see we have 10 instances and all my tags have perfect coverage. If only that was the real world and everything came out that nicely. So our system is pretty tolerant to not having, equal tags on instances. We understand that's the world we live in, reality. You have different manufacturers. And so we're very tolerant. We don't require you to build these templates up front. We kind of discover what tags are part of the template. Once you're in here, you can adjust that template if you don't want to have all these tags available or visible to your end users. This is where you can do the adjustments on the back end. We don't, you're not creating the templates up front and matching that to your logging source. We discover everything, report that to you, and you can make adjustments as needed. So I'm going to go ahead and create this asset model. And now I should see Acme suddenly show up out here. And same thing that we saw before. So here I can see all my lines. If I would have drilled in, I would see the tanks. So I think we're pretty good at this layer.
And now within Canary, you have essentially an object called a tank. You have an object called a line, an object called a plant, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. And so I can kind of see, I think Jeff was probably trying to squint and see those down here, but we do have a summary of the asset types that we've discovered inside that model presented here. And then once we have an asset model in place, then this is where it opens up possibilities in the rest of the system with our calcs and events within Axiom and the asset templating that we do. That's where these models can really be utilized, and you can do some pretty powerful things for asset monitoring, maybe report by exception type displays, things like that. So
awesome. So you shift over and show us on that calc side. Just for the audience, there's certain things that become really problematic in your analytics when you think about understanding how many assets do I have, especially in environments where that number changes, right? Oil and gas is a great example, right? How many wellheads do you have today? Well, it's probably not the same number as tomorrow. And so there's certain calcs that we're going to highlight today in Canary that are going to be really helpful for Graham to use, because you're going to be providing him things like counts and then higher snapshots of what's happening across those counts of assets. And so there's you're going to see some very specific syntax, I guess would be the way to say it. Here's some functions that Canary has built specifically for this task that Ken's going to highlight.
Okay. All right, so let's see. We'll start off with some of those kind of specific functions that we've developed. So obviously within our asset model, we know there's some sort of hierarchy built now. We saw plant, we saw lines, and then obviously we saw tanks. And so a very common thing that you want to do is you want to do some sort of computation on your child assets and present that as a tag at one of the parent levels. And so in this case, we'll demonstrate we're going to get an average of all our tank levels and present that for the plant. So let me go ahead and put in what we would like to call that here. So we'll call this roll up tank average. And our asset path is we want to target the model we just built. And we're going to target the parent that we want to roll up to. So in this case, we're going to take this all the way up to the plant level. While I'm here, and so I don't forget, we're going to go ahead and backfill this one as well. We'll go back to our September 1st date. And down here in our expression area is where we can start building out what that computation looks like. So I know we call that a roll-up. And so I'm going to go ahead and add my roll up function over here, and going to cheat a little bit so that I don't have to cut, or so I don't have to type everything out, and I'm sure I get it right. So I'm going to address the model that we are working within. And I'm going to specify what we want to do here. So this would be, we're doing an average across our tanks for our level tags. And I know we want to out
Ken,
Yep.
that percentage asset percentage.
uh-huh.
Just for the audience use case, what is that doing?
Yeah, so we're basically wild carding, based on the asset type. So it's a placeholder that gets replaced by the actual path of the asset that's being evaluated. So it's nothing more than special syntax within our expressions as a placeholder or variable holder based on the asset being evaluated.
So it's going to carry the uniqueness of each individual asset and bring that later on, like when you're doing your tag name.
That is correct. Yeah. So we're going to call this Acme Calcs, going to same thing, percent asset percent. And we're going to call this average level roll up. And if I do an evaluate, so we only have one plant. If we had multiple sites, this drop down, of course, would reflect what would be in the model. But we're going to go ahead and do an evaluate here. Oh,
you're periodic.
Yeah, how about that? So, see, it's a good thing that we do the evaluate. So let's do. What do you want this? 5 minutes? Or you want this 1 hour? How frequent you want it?
I don't think it's going to matter for us because I don't think we're changing. But
okay. So there we go. So now we evaluated correctly. Once I corrected our frequency, I can go ahead and apply this, close this. If I kick this one off, if I can hit the little triangle, we should see some status coming in over here that it's initializing, backfilling, tells us how many evaluations, how many TVQs we're writing. If I pop to my historian quick, I can see that we are writing to our Acme Calcs now as well. And as I continue to work on this, our views is actually going to rebuild and reflect these tags in the background. Let me go through kind of a similar process here. I forget what I'm horrible at naming conventions. Sorry about this. So I call it a roll up tank average. Okay. Mm-hmm. So let's do kind of roll up, asset count. I guess better called tank count. Kind of same thing. We're going to take a plant and same thing, periodic. Let's backfill this. Of course, our data is perfect, so we actually don't have any tanks coming and going. So this should be a single number forever. And in this case, we're looking for a function that starts with asset.
And Ken, if you would this time also, just if you can show us that asset tags tab when you put that in, just so
sure. Yep.
That we have an actual picker that we can use.
Yeah. So just as we defined our model and I showed what tags we discovered, since I'm working at a plant level, the asset tags is going to be a little weird because it's showing every permutation of the 4 tags under the unique names. But if I was doing a calculation for a tank and I went to asset tags, I would see just the 4 tags that's truly part of the template. So if I do an evaluate, it's a good thing at work. We know we have 10 tanks inside our plant. So just real quickly, this asset instance count is pretty unique if you want to start performing some of your own averaging, how many assets are, if you're trying to compute a, number of assets that are active, things like that. So you start combining some maybe status tags along with the counts to start getting some runtime percentages, things like that. So,
And you'll want to take care of your tag naming.
thanks.
Yep.
See, you distracted me.
Mm-hmm. And what's nice is while you're doing that, Ken, is there's also a metadata field here. So if you wanted to create specific properties, maybe carry the site name or carry some other type of metadata with these tags, you've got the ability to do that.
That is correct. That's that calcs. Okay.
So the real quick, the Acme calcs, did you already have that view created, or did it create it when you typed it in the last time?
Yeah, so that was a data set that I actually already had created. So I kind of had shells of data sets out here already.
Gotcha.
If that data set didn't exist when I applied this, it would actually pop a warning up saying, hey, you're trying to write to a data set that doesn't exist. Would you like to go ahead and create that? So I could have done it on the fly. I had it already pre-staged. I knew what I wanted to have set up. So one of the few things that was pre-staged in this. So so now we're backfilling our roll-up tank count. If I jump back over to the historian, I can see now I'm writing both my tags to my calcs, and it's backfilling. And it's probably done backfilling already. If only all backfills were that quickly. So
Cool.
And then I think we just want to show one more here. So real
How about
quick.
like a 30-minute rolling average?
Of you want the pH rolling average
Graham, do you have a preference of anything you need?
or a level?
Not at this point.
Yeah, let's do a rolling delta of the level, Ken.
Oh man, throw me a curveball. Rolling delta level. Okay. Acme. We're going tank. We'll go ahead and backfill this one as well. Missed it. Number first, periodic.
Can we do it on a value change so that we're looking now back 30 minutes?
Sure. Okay. So this will trigger on any value change. And so it just happens to be that I kept the screen on asset tags here. And so as promised, as now that we're targeting a tank instead of a plant, now I have my 4 tags that are available within a tank template. So you're going to have to help me with the syntax on rolling average delta.
Gotcha. Maybe it's been a year, but
yeah. This isn't one that I do very often. So
pop in your delta. You'll be all right. And it's and it's just going to be first bracket. You're just going to put in your asset tag.
Just a tag, right?
Yeah, and actually, you just pick it out of I would pick it right out of the asset tags because it's going to bring in the path for you.
Thank you. See?
Yes, sir.
There we go.
And then now minus 30M. And so which we're and evaluate it. Let's make sure I'm not a crazy person. Invalid aggregate. Oh, you got to take the thank you. There it is. Perfect.
Okay.
Yep. So I see I did slip. I did forget.
Yeah. See, and I just followed your lead. So yeah. Blind leading the blind.
Right off the cliff. So the beauty of this is now every time the value changes, Canary is going to go back and recalculate the delta over the last 30 minutes from value change and write that. Really, really helpful. Very difficult to do this in a fast, easy way across multiple assets elsewhere.
All right. So let's go ahead and pick this one off as well. This one's going to take a little longer to backfill because now we're backfilling 10 instances instead of just the single plant instance.
Yeah, over a lot of data. We'll come back and we'll check in on you. Let's go ahead and just show the view if you would, if the view has repopulated with the other 2 tags. That would be cool.
Sure. Yeah. So if I jump over to views, I can see we rebuilt a little bit ago. We do have some protections built in on so that the views aren't rebuilding constantly. And so I think we're still inside the window and it hasn't actually rebuilt yet. I still just have my original 40 tags, but because I'm an impatient person, we could either wait and show that it does it automatically, or we could rebuild manually and pull those tags in. So
Yeah, let's rebuild it.
Okay.
And remind me, where do if I wanted to configure that, is it I need to go into program data under views?
no, it's out in program files. It's actually alongside the executable. There's a parameter in the .admin file, I believe, that controls how quickly we will allow rebuilds to occur. So
Don't go change it, but unless you talk to Canary first. All right, you've rebuilt, and we've got tags.
we did discover some new tags. So now if I go into my plant, before all we had was 10 lines. Now we have some tags sitting at the plant level as well, which didn't exist. And if I would continue down into a tank, I can see I now have 5 tags that are being reflected as part of my tank template. So
Awesome.
I can see that the calc data set did in fact get consumed by the model.
All right, well, let's shift over to Graham. And now Graham's going to take this data, do some cool stuff with it. But Graham, you're going to also be challenged so that if Ken wanted to build more calculations in Canary based on information that Flow has discovered, can we publish some of your information back to Canary as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll do that. I think what I'll do is, since we're coming straight off of Ken's data, my thinking is I'm going to build out from a template all 10 instances of those lines.
Okay.
Show that functionality very quickly, publish that back to Ken, and then we can come back and talk about the remote edge PLCNext, if that workflow works for you.
That's great. So for the audience, what Graham's saying is essentially what you're going to see him doing in his enterprise environment is the exact same thing he would be doing from a build out in an edge environment. It's just a matter of which platform is he connected to. We want to make sure you get the meat and potatoes, and we actually are on a 30-minute clock now. So I'm going to stop talking, Graham, let you build, but you're going to see him focus on the enterprise analytics right now.
Okay, cool. So just very quickly, for those who are not familiar with Flow, I think a lot of the Integrate Live audience is already familiar with Flow, but this is the configuration environment. And this is where typically a process engineer or a systems engineer will come in and build out the Flow model, will connect to various data sources, will create calculations, will create KPIs, will ultimately templatize parts of the model, components of the model, and that will then allow them to first mass instantiate or bulk instantiate model components, as well as then share those templates out to other systems, especially if you've got a multi-site organization. That's going to be incredibly useful for rapid deployment and for standardizing an information model across all of your manufacturing sites in your organization. So I'm not exactly sure why, but we chose Chicago as being the location of this first factory. On the left-hand side here, I've got our model. And you can build and structure your hierarchical model as you wish. You can conform to S95 if you want to, but we don't restrict you to any specific model. You can use a folder structure and you can design it as you wish. And this is quite useful because a lot of the time our customers don't only model their equipment in their plant, but they also model more logical things like their safety and their risk KPIs, absenteeism, their people KPIs, their incident management, etc. So there's a whole lot of other KPIs and things that you can put into this model, and hence that flexibility is really useful. In this case, I've just got a utilities folder. We might have some boilers in there, some compressors, whatever. And what we're going to use today is the production environment where we're going to have those lines that Ken has created, as well as the PLCNext that's sitting on my desk. I'm a bit nervous to pick it up and put it in front of the camera because I might disconnect something. So just believe me, it's sitting right here on my desk. Let me move my camera. There it is. Okay, I'm not lying. It's right there. Okay. So, but what I'll do is I'm first going to start with the connection to Canary. So within Flow, we have this tab for data connections. This is to configure connections to data coming into the Flow system. We call those data sources into Flow. We also have data consumers, which are outside of Flow, consuming Flow data. You can also think of it as a data sink from within Flow. Let's have a look at our connection to Ken's Canary. There we go. You'll see the default view directly into the historian. That's what Ken then built his view on top of. So this is the view. If we look at the view, it's going to give us a little bit of path information, and then it's going to give us all those tags that Jake and Ken created. Cool. What I'm going to do, I've pre-built a template which connects to all of these tags, and then I'll take you through it. So here is my template. I've got a line template, and within that, I've got for each line, I've got a tank, I've got my alarm, I've created active duration, count, average duration. I've created some stuff under the level, under the pH, and under the temperature. So these are a couple of KPIs. Once I've instantiated it, I will then drill in and show you a few things. So let me just start with one line. I'm going to drag this template across to production. I'm going to create one line. We're going to use line 1. I need to address it with a format of a double digit. If I just preview what it's going to do, it's going to build out line 1. I'm happy with that. I continue. It's now created an instance of that line in our model. If I just have a look at a couple of the tags that Ken created. Okay, that's not so good. There we go. That's better. All right. So this is now a little window that's just looking into the Canary system. And it's not duplicating the data at this point. It's just showing us what that data looks like. And as a data engineer, as a process engineer, it's very useful, obviously, to your data before you decide how you're going to start creating KPIs and calculating and aggregating, etc. All right, so what I'm going to now do is just deploy this out. What that means is it's going to take the definition of all of those calculations, all of those KPIs, and it's going to deploy them out to the Flow calculation engine. The Flow calculation engine is going to go back in time because we've got history in Canary, and it's going to go and then work through all of that data and do all of those calculations for us. At the same time, and let's see if it's actually done anything. So this is a KPI. That does not look to be working. Should be working. Okay. Maybe it's still busy.
It might be busy. The detect, store, and forward might also be driving you nuts. We'll wait and see. So Canary and Flow have an integration where Flow's aware of if Canary is in store and forward mode, which is awesome. When we generate data from the data gen service into Canary, I have noticed that Flow can be problematic with store and forward turned on. So we'll see first, Graham, if it's just the data engine not being done yet. I'm guessing if it doesn't come up with data, it's because of that store and forward trigger, but we'll see.
So I just want to do something very quickly, because as you know, I would have tested this literally 5 minutes before we started.
While he's doing that, Alan, I've been dying to tell you a joke. Do you know what the most popular board game in Prague is?
No, I do not.
That would be checkers. Checkers. Come on, that's good.
That's good.
That is good. Any questions from the audience for Jake or for Ken? Drop them in the Q&A for us, and we will take those as they come in, please.
All right, so what I'm doing now is I'm just trying to troubleshoot for myself, because I think I've got a connection problem somewhere. So what I'm doing here is I'm just creating what we call an auto addressing. And this works really well with the templates. When you mass instantiate or bulk instantiate a template, you want to use auto addressing. So that seems to be working. I'm then going to just create an hourly, let's call it a 1 hour delta for our level. And let's see if that works. Nope.
All right. Stop it for me, Graham. Go back into that. I think I can troubleshoot it real quick. Turn the detect, store, and forward to false and try it again.
Okay.
Right in that 1H delta that you had open there. It's at the bottom of the context on the retrieval. There we go. Now re-backfill it and try it once more for me. That has burnt me from when the data is coming in only from the data generation tool. And Ken, I can't explain the why on that, but I'm curious if that's what's going on.
Yeah, I'm not sure what difference that would make. We're not doing anything, through a backdoor or anything with data gen. It's going through store and forward.
It was something, but Lenny has walked me through it, and it was something to do maybe the extension or the holding the I don't remember, but
time extension probably. Well, time extension would be on by default, but the tags are changing. I guess the alarm tags aren't changing though.
Yeah, there was something, but anyway, there it goes.
So that one worked.
Mm-hmm.
Go back to my original one.
And good. Now we have an isolated environment with the other one. So if this one,
there we go. Okay.
Just needed to restart your data engine.
So
now you can breathe, Graham.
I'm starting to breathe again. All right. So this is the raw data coming from from that alarm tag. In fact, you know what? I'm going to rather use the level tag because it's just easier to see nice data. And what I did in the template is I then created a 5-minute delta. So in other words, every 5 minutes, just give me what the delta is. And there you can see it's every 5 minutes, we've got a period there, and it's giving me a delta. Then I created a 1 hour delta. And the nice thing about the way Flow works is that the 1 hour delta uses the 5-minute delta to calculate itself. So in other words, it doesn't have to go back and hit Canary again, which when you're doing thousands and thousands of calculations really makes this efficient. And it puts less burden on your underlying data sources. So here is our hourly one at the bottom here. Okay, I'm going to build that all out, but what we can do, Ken, is if you can just have a look, we should see, and I'll tell you now, but we should see what I pre-built in the template was a integration back into Canary for a whole lot of tags, and it would go into Acme Fruit, I believe. No, let me check. It's going to go into, sorry, Acme Flow is the data set.
And is it and it's backfilled as well, Graham?
It should have backfilled, yes. Are you not seeing anything there, Ken?
I have not yet.
Okay.
Let me check some things on my side here. No, I do not. Unfortunately, don't see any active writers yet.
All right. Well, what we can do is when I build it out with my PLCNext, we can go through it there.
Perfect. Graham, I'm going to ask for a quick pivot. Is that all right?
Cool.
I'm going to put you on the spot. Let's take an event. Let's set up an event as an alarm. Don't worry about doing it in the template, but I think it would be nice to show the audience the measures that you can create off of an event.
Sure. Okay.
Will you define an event for us under production that just tells us if we're in an alarm state? So, 1 is true, 0 is false on the alarm tag.
Cool. So we'll
And
use.
as soon as you started to pivot, the tags arrived in Canary. So
Okay.
the active writers in the Acme Flow.
How many you seeing just the tag he sent, or are you seeing
I see 9 tags have arrived thus far.
The reason I want you to show that, Graham, is I think someone in the audience right now might be thinking, okay, but I saw Ken doing a delta, right? I saw Ken running a delta on the level, and now Flo's doing a delta on the level. Why would we do it in both? So I think it'd be a good time to do a differentiation. And a lot of our stacks, especially in the Integrate Live community, you're going to see crossover between vendors because vendors are trying to solve problems for their audience. What we want to highlight is, hey, here's something that you can do in one tool that would be very difficult to try to do on another tool. And you can do it as a best practice here. And so Graham's showing you the alarm tag. It's tripping between a 0 and a 1 a whole bunch. And the idea here is to create some new metrics around, hey, in the last hour, how many times did it trip? What's the mean duration between events? And what was my maximum alarm time?
How many times did you go above your threshold?
Right, these types of things. And I think you're going to see that he can do this pretty quickly. by just using that alarm tag to define his, he can define his start, and he can define his trigger. So easy enough, right? When it's a 0 state, it's over. When it's a 1 state, it's on, and off he goes.
So just to quickly explain what I've done here, I've created what we call an event definition. Part of that definition, we need to know what is the start of the event. And that can be a combination of tags. It can be calculations. There are various options there. We also want to know what is the trigger for the end of the event. So I've used the alarm tag coming from Canary, tank 1, line 1, tank 1. And I've got a couple of options for that tag. When it's true, when the condition becomes true, when it's false, when there are any tag changes that are detected, which is useful for a state tag. And this one's quite useful when the tag's value remains unchanged. We can set a duration for when a tag doesn't change, typically meaning we've got stale data. We could generate alarms or events within Flow because we have stale data, or maybe a totalizer has stopped counting for a certain period, whatever. So you've got some really interesting options there. My condition here is just that I want the tag to be 1 because it's a Boolean tag coming from Canary, and my end of trigger is when that tag's value then goes back to 0. Very simple, nothing really to it. What we could do as well is we have the concept of adding attributes to this event definition. So for every event period that is generated or detected by Flow, we can then add context to that event. And that can be, it can be text-based information, it can be value-based information. We could put in there things like what recipe were we running, what was the batch ID that we were busy running, if it's downtime events, what was the fault code, things like that. Maybe who the operator was, what the work order was. So you can put a whole lot of context in for every single event. And if you think about the reason why we do that, it's when we then integrate this data via our API or through our integration services out to BI tools or machine learning tools, we're providing all of that additional context, that slicing and dicing context that those analytics tools can use, which is obviously really necessary for analytics. Okay, so hopefully this one works now as well. What this is just going to show us is the detection points for those events. This was the original tag. If I bring this in, I should see a very similar pattern.
Graham, if you would backfill that more than to the 12th, backfill that. Go ahead and backfill.
Thank you, Jeff. That was the problem. Let's go back to.
And just keeping time, we're about 5 minutes. So I would ask you to create a couple measures for maybe just daily or weekly, and let's walk through what you can do with those.
Okay, so we're going to take that event. We're going to, let's put it on a daily. Let's do a count. Just naming convention that I like, 1 day count. In my retrieval settings, my source is that event. I'm going to count every time an event period started within each day. Right? I can provide filtering. There's a whole lot of stuff that I can do there.
The backfill, you're defaulting to the 12th.
Yeah, let's change my default. Okay, while that's going, let's do duration. So a very similar thing, just a drop-down box. These are all the different types of aggregations we can do. I'm looking for active duration. That's going to give it to me in milliseconds. So I'm going to convert that. Just scaling it. Got the right backfill dates. Okay, that's done. So we just have a look at these two.
And would you do mean time between events also?
Sure.
I'd like to be able to understand if my alarms are getting more frequent or less frequent.
Mean time between events, again, very simple. We just look for, in this case, duration between events. It is also going to be.
Can you integrate this to Canary as well, this one, to show that process?
Sure. So under the integration tab, I'm going to just pull in my Canary data source. And I'm going to press deploy. And Ken, you should see that then coming through to that Acme Flow data set. Okay, Jeff, keep directing me here because I still want to see if we can just talk about the PLCNext. Maybe we don't have to demonstrate it, but I'd like to just talk about the concept of what we're doing there.
Go for it.
So you'll notice that in our data sources, typically you are connecting to data sources or data sinks within your environment, right? Within your WAN or at least within your LAN. But sometimes, especially when we're talking about a cloud-based server and flow system, and we've got edge data, we've got PLCs running at the edge on our plants, but we want a centralized server collecting all that data. Sometimes we don't have the VPN connections required to bring that into our WAN. Now, what Flow allows you to do is deploy what we call a remote data source. So here we have a remote PLCNext, this one sitting on my desk. And what it does from the remote data source, it has an outbound connection to the instance running in the cloud. So in other words, the instance running in the cloud cannot directly communicate with it. So it's a similar architecture to the way MQTT works. So what happens is as soon as this container, which is running on the PLCNext or any other device, in this case, the PLCNext, the container is configured to communicate up to the Cloud Flow system. And through that connection, it can then pull down what it needs and it can get commands of what you're asking it for. So what that allows is just a huge flexibility around the architecture of deploying edge-based systems within the Flow environment.
And this is all relatively new for Flow, correct? This is something you just started working on in the last 30 days, 60 days from a release standpoint of the software.
Correct. So the first step in that was getting our deployable components all running within a Linux environment, which then means we can run in containers. We're running in Podman containers, Docker containers. And then the second part of that was obviously building in the infrastructure that we can make sure we only have outbound connections from a manufacturing site perspective.
Perfect. Thank you, Graham. Hey, Jake, I want to kick it over to you to wrap it up. you're working right now on some software development to be able to subscribe to the broker as well and consume this data back to the PLCNext?
Correct. Yes. Thank you, Graham. I'll
So,
just share my screen here quick again.
so both Graham and Ken, theoretically, or by full release solution of their product, have been able to publish to an MQTT broker for multiple versions now. And that means that they can take everything that they've done, put it back to that broker, and Jake can now become a data consumer with the next release of the gateway. Yeah.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. So let's log in here. So the next addition to the gateway is exposing outside of that Sparkplug namespace so that you can fully have access to MQTT. And it's going to be just a similar sort of dealy. This is not the broker that we're using here. So I only have one login for that, but I could just do a quick connection to my own, and that way you can see what it would look like. QTT connection in here. So same sort of layout, except then you also have subscriptions here in which you could add a subscription. And then here's just a screenshot of this in action and what it's going to look like. So this was from a colleague of mine who was working on the UI.
You have a targeted release that you're thinking? Is it New Year or
yeah. Well, no, I mean our targeted release was before the for the new year for the MQTT. So I'm not sure reevaluating, but we are, yeah. I mean, we're running out of time here. We got Thanksgiving and Christmas coming up, so yeah, I'm not sure how relevant a this year release would be to push for, but
okay.
yeah, certainly if there's anybody out there who's interested in the product, yeah, just reach out. We're pretty close. Yeah, again, it's just like with Sparkplug, just wrapping up certification with that, and then obviously Sparkplug is an extension of MQTT, so a lot of this is just exposing of the UI and or exposing of functionality, running in the software via the UI. And creating UI for it and whatnot. So yeah, just wrapping up the subscription system, and then we'll be ready to kick that out for a beta for people to mess around with.
Awesome. And the best way for someone to get on that beta list, is it to reach out directly to you or
yeah, there's several ways. I mean, you could go to the download this demo of this for free from our website. If you just went to the Phoenix USA website and searched PLCNext, PLCNext Edge Gateway, you should find it there. Also on the PLCNext Edge App Store, you can download it there. And yeah, you can contact us directly then via this. This actually goes, you fill this out and click submit, it'll go directly to my inbox. So yeah,
happy Thanksgiving through the gateway.
Yeah, there you go.
Ken, we know that you guys are working on supporting Linux environments and Docker. That's your roadmap. Anything to note in the next, or is that still the main focus right now?
That's still the next focus. We do have a 23.2 due to come out before the end of the year. We're doing a new feature in that, what we call link tags. So quite often, we run across people where tags get renamed, or, especially when they're standing up new historians, we got live tags, but then they want to bring, history in. So this will allow us to virtually stitch tags together without having to physically build all the HDB files, the underlying files that we use in our storage. So it's going to take some of the manual maintenance and stuff away that a user can simply provide a CSV file potentially that will say, tag A got renamed to tag B. When I look at it in Axiom, treat it as one continuous data stream. So link tags is the new feature where it's in testing right now. we had hoped it would hit by Thanksgiving. I don't think that's going to happen, so it'll probably come out first week of December. So we are squeezing another release in before our 24 release next year. So
Awesome. Well, link tags, that's an exciting feature. I didn't know that that was coming.
Yeah.
It,
it'll be pretty slick and open up a lot of options and close a lot of headaches that we have with nodes moving around within the Ignition ecosystem and things like that. So we're going to handle it all in the view service. Historian's still going to have the two tags, one that's no longer active, your active one, but from an end user standpoint, they shouldn't tell any difference and think that the history has always been there on those new tags. So
cool. It's the best of both worlds. Well done.
Yeah.
And Graham, what do you have coming down the pipeline?
So our immediate feature that's coming out actually potentially next week, we're looking at exposing a CLI, a command line interface. What we found over time, especially with some of our larger customers, they are deploying tens, 20s, some customers even hundreds of sites, of flow instances. Now, obviously, as you're starting to get more and more of these instances running, it does become quite difficult from an IT perspective to manage them, to do upgrades, to do your template management, et cetera, et cetera. So we're bringing out the CLI, which is going to help do high-level bulk installations, migrations of data from older systems to new systems, and then template management as well. So that's coming out quite soon. The next big one is through our partnership with Sesame. We are looking at a smart manufacturing innovation platform, and that comes with a couple of things, but one of the nice and exciting things for me anyway, is that we're going to be exposing all the flow information in that model, including any connected data sources data, through a GraphQL endpoint. So that's coming in probably the new year, early new year. And then we're also looking at enhancing some of our integration mechanisms. So just like we saw that integration out to Canary, and we could have integrated out to other systems like HiveMQ, we are looking at enhancing that capability in terms of creating mini models or data sets and be able to integrate multiple things out. And this is really for our enterprise clients that are using things like Azure IoT Hub or AWS Kinesis, et cetera, to get data out to their data lakes and BI tools.
Thanks, Graham. I just want to say, I think one of the benefits of our experience over the last year of really doing Integrate Live has been seeing all the different vendors that we've had the pleasure of working with and seeing the vendors working together. You're starting to see some of the cross-pollination of, wow, they have that feature. That's really cool. Can we incorporate something similar to that? And so as you start to see, whether it's Phoenix Contact having the ability to subscribe to a broker and Canary making slight changes to the link tags, just it's been very encouraging to me, the collaboration between the different vendors and end users, and so it's been exciting, and I'm grateful for that. I want to say happy Thanksgiving, everybody on the call, everyone who is going to hear this hopefully before next Thursday, and it's been great, and thank you, Ken.
Hey, Alan.
Yes.
As Graham was talking about integration, I realized we never actually showed that integration came back to Canary. Sorry. I kicked Graham off. I'm just doing a quick screen share. There's Acme Flow. Transparency, right? We don't want you to just because we said it worked. Ken said, yeah, it worked. Well, no, look, it did. There's the mean time between.
Sure.
There's the active duration, there's the average duration, the counts, all the stuff that Graham said he was publishing back to Canary. So
closing the loop.
It's closing the loop, man. We want you to trust us, but we don't want you to always have to just trust us. How about that?
Jeff, thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Everybody in the States, enjoy your turkey sandwiches on Friday. We know that's the highlight. Graham, I'll teach you what that's all about. And to our worldwide audience, thank you so much for tuning in. We would not be doing this if it wasn't for you. And thanks for spending the time with us today.